From the wing, Bosick races in and cracks home Hungary's 5th goal. But the massacre isn't over yet. Hidikuti, already scored 2, makes it a hat-trick. England, down but not out, come back to try and crack Hungary's Iron Curtain defence. Leading the attack is human dynamo Stan Mortensen. But Grosix brings him down. The Dutch referee won't stand for rugby tactics, so it's a penalty to England. Alf Ramsey takes it, and it's in the net! And that's how it stays up to the finish. By 6 goals to 3, Hungary, the most brilliant team ever to visit Britain, shatter the unbeaten home record England has held in 90 years of football.
English football was in crisis. A long period of soul-searching followed.
Managers gathered from all over the country. With Sir Stanley Rouse, the FA chairman, they were to thrash out the whole problem. But sad to relate, little seems to have been done since. The managers, say some critics, put cash before country. But business is business, and they can hardly be blamed for not cutting the league programme to allow their stars to train for the English team. Few players, with the exception of masters like Matthews, combine individual skill with the ability to work with a team of comparative strangers. So that kind of training is vital. Finney to Brodis, who crashes it in for England's first goal.
On the right wing, the embarrassment of riches that was Matthews and Finney had created a problem for some years. The pub experts argued that Finney was a better goal scorer, but Matthews, others argued, was a better crosser of the ball. But Matthews can't head it, was the rejoinder. But why does he need to? When he's out on the wing, came the reply. The argument was settled when Finney moved to the other side of the pitch, as he was more comfortable on the left than Matthews. They were both accommodated.
But Tom Finney soon bringing it back again. He beats Alec Parker. He centres, and Bobby Charlton runs in for a magnificent goal. A royal investiture at Buckingham Palace. And here to be created a Commander of the Order of the British Empire is Stanley Matthews, with his wife Betty and his daughter Jean. Once before he received a medal from the Queen, at the finest match of his career, the 1953 Cup Final, when Her Majesty saw him lay the foundations of Blackpool's victory over Bolton. Here he is, wriggling through to place the ball neatly at Mortensen's feet for a brilliant goal. And here, the greatest right-winger football has ever seen makes the pass which won the cup for Blackpool. The maestro of soccer is still unbeaten, at an age when most professional footballers have retired for years. And though this may have been his finest moment, when he won his only Wembley medal, it was but the highlight of a brilliant career. Few would deny that Stanley Matthews is the best-loved sportsman of our time. And this royal honour endorses the public esteem which has long been his. A proud spectator is Stanley Matthews Jr., and we all join him in congratulating a great footballer and a fine man. "25 years in football."
Honour was heaped upon honour in the autumn years of his playing career.
The National Sporting Club gathers to honour Stan's quarter century. Charles Forty acts as host. John Charles is among the guests, and so is Jim Laker and other great figures from every field of sport.
Stanley Matthews was now officially a national treasure, and yet retirement seemed the furthest thing from his mind, especially since in 1956 he'd been named the European Footballer of the Year.
Tommy Trinder voices what everyone is thinking.
May I say, it's been one of my greatest privileges to see you as a footballer, to meet you as a man, and tonight, in front of millions of people, be here to say thank you for everything you've done for football and sportsmanship. God bless you. Hear, hear.
The National Sporting Club has a present for the grand old man of soccer, a magnificent cocktail cabinet, which Charles Forty opens for Stanley's inspection. And as for being the grand old man of soccer, Stanley has a few words to say about that himself.
My lords and gentlemen, I feel somehow I'm going to lose my reputation tonight. You've heard Tommy Trinder. He's a comedian. He's a director of Fulham Football Club. I feel out of place, as Fulham would be if they're in the First Division. You know, sometimes I'm called old man of soccer. I am a little thin on top, but really I'm not that old. I'd like to thank you for the wonderful present you have presented me. My lords and gentlemen, I thank you.
His fame had stretched beyond the narrow boundaries of England. He was an acknowledged legend wherever the game was played, and spent a long time coaching the up-and-coming football nations.
In case you hadn't noticed, it's not Blackpool he's playing for this time. The scene is Accra Stadium, and his teammates are the Hearts of Oak, Ghana's leading side, with whom the maestro is making an exhibition tour of the new West African state. Stanley meets the Prime Minister, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and presents his team. No question of Stanley being a fish out of water, for these young men of Ghana are very promising footballers. Stan himself is in fine form. Over the bar, but never mind, in a few minutes Stanley's back again, as slippery as ever. A teammate grabs the pass, the goalie runs out, but he dodges him and the goal's wide open. All the spectators are cheering for Stanley, the uncrowned king of soccer. Uncrowned? The Hearts of Oak soon put that right, with a proper coronation on a chief's throne of carved mahogany, with an ivory scepter of office, which he can take home with him to prove it all really happened. Julius Caesar never had it so good as this.
The great Pelé once said of him, "He taught us how the game should be played." Later adding, even in Brazil, the name Matthews had the aura of magic. In 1961, Stan was back at Stoke.
Overnight, down in the mouth, Stoke City were transformed. Stanley Matthews was back with the club, and shoals of telegrams left him in no doubt about his welcome. What a tonic for Stoke, near the bottom of Division 2, that Mr. Football was home again. And what a game.
In a £2,500 deal, he sent attendances through the roof and presided over their return to the top flight. The move to Blackpool, all those years earlier, was forgiven. In 1963, aged 48, he was Player of the Year yet again.
Those familiar moves initiated from the right were sure to pay off when the game settled down. 46-year-old Stan was soon giving the Huddersfield defence the biggest run around they've had this year. There wasn't a shadow of the old gloom left on Stoke City ground. He laid on a perfect chance, the ball went to the Huddersfield net, and there it was. He'll be playing when he gets the old age pension.
In 1965, more honours, as he became the first footballer to be made a Knight of the Realm.
There's an investiture, and among the people honoured by the Queen is Stanley Matthews. But no longer a mere mister. He is Sir Stanley, first professional footballer to be made a knight. And if this is his last season, all First Division left-backs are overjoyed. Wonder how many autographs he's signed since he began his astonishing career. Congratulations to a jolly good fellow, say all of us.
That year finally did see his retirement from the game at an incredible 50 years old.
On the same day, he went to Stoke Football Ground to give the crowd their last look at those twinkling feet. At this club, he began as a professional in 1932. He was preparing now to play in the Matthews 11 versus World Stars, who came from 7 countries to pay the kind of tribute he appreciated. Quite on the bench beside Di Stefano from Spain.
All the greats of world football came to the Victoria Ground to salute him.
Puskas, also from Spain. Di Stefano again. At inside right, Kubala, Spain too. In goal, Yashin, Russia. Mazopust, Czechoslovakia. The great Stan himself had his pre-game massage for more than the 1,000th time. Puskas interrupting. Jimmy Greaves played in the Matthews 11, so did Johnny Haynes. The fullbacks Cohen and Thompson with Flowers and Douglas. On the empty ground where his career began and ended What poignant moments now. He remembers those Wembley cheers in the historic final, the Matthews final 12 years ago.
For years afterwards, he complained that he'd given up too early. He had a brief flirtation with management up the road at Port Vale, but it ended in tears after an FA fine of £2,000 was levied on the club over alleged illegal payments to players.
We never expected anything like the severity which we've just experienced. As I've said previously, we're absolutely shocked and appalled. Nothing else to say.
Are you going to appeal, Mr. McPherson?
We may consider this at a later date.
And what's the position of Sir Stanley?
The position of Sir Stanley at the moment, that he feels quite justifiably, after being a sporting ambassador of this country for over 30 years, he's deeply concerned about these findings.
Disillusioned, he retreated from the game in England. He moved to Malta. All things change, and even his beloved Victoria ground was demolished. But he was there as guest of honour when Stoke opened their new ground, the Britannia Stadium. He'd always led a strict and disciplined life. A teetotaler, he was years ahead of his time when it came to fitness, especially in his adherence to a strict dietary regime. Not for him the pie and a pint culture that had ruled British football. But even he couldn't go on forever. 1996 saw the first evidence of his failing health.
The former England soccer star, Sir Stanley Matthews, has been admitted to hospital in Stoke-on-Trent suffering from chest pains. He's said to be in a comfortable condition.
After the death of his second wife, Mila, he went into a severe decline. With his immaculate timing still intact, he saw in the new millennium and died on the eve of an England international at Wembley on February 23rd in the year 2000. He was 85. The debate about whether he would have survived in the modern game is a redundant one. He was the greatest of his era, and that is all anyone can be. There are great wingers in the game today, of course, but their job is a different one. They must tackle back and cover prodigious amounts of turf, and all this on top of their offensive duties of crossing and scoring. But in full, glorious flight, they remind us all that regardless of the rewards of the modern game, it is still for the love of that game that they play. The same reason that he did. And the same reason that the rest of us keep watching.